What's it like to be an experiencer? Okay, every story is unique. Here's an example. I was given an assignment, basically, to go out and experience the world in a different way. And I was warned, and this is telepathic, you're getting instructions. It's very clear, not my mind making it up, because I wouldn't have chosen this particular exercise, to go out and just observe. And so what I saw in one instance during that time, it was about 3 or 4 months that this was very, very front and center in my life. And we'll pick it up from there later in the show. Hello, this is Wendy's Coffee House. It's a very big deal here coming into 2022 because the energy is shifting. Are you an experiencer? The language has changed on that. The terminology and the things that we incorporate as a part of that experience have actually expanded because more people are connecting the dots between the paranormal and the UFO, the ET, the unexplained, the fairies, the goblins, all of that, angels, all of that stuff that used to have its own niche is now beginning to be incorporated into a larger database of related encounters. The way that we have determined our consciousness works for each and every one of us. And then our background, the society that we're in, the geographical area, the words, the language used to describe certain things in various parts of our world, we are limited by our language. And so when you get out of that, wherever you are, and start to compare the actions that are involved in the stories, not the visual, but what happens in the activity during the event, and realize this is really very similar. These things that are happening, and not only that, there's a complaint that, used to be that we would describe it as ships in the sky way back when. And now we've come into discs. But it's been with us for a long time. It's just that we didn't have the capacity to make the kind of applications that we do now in terms of describing it and fitting it in a context that is relatable to multiple divisions of paranormal, extraordinary, supernatural, alien, all of that. So that makes it really complicated when you're trying to talk about it. So I'm going to go with one. As an experiencer, I've had my time shifted. I've had things happen while I was fully conscious and fully awake to know that whatever it is incredibly adept at fixing our reality or unfixing it. So it can change it in just a microsecond. And you can experience something you didn't think was possible, and all of a sudden this is happening and you're in the middle of it. And when one of those things happened to me, what they said was, don't telegraph. I was given an assignment, basically, to go out and experience the world in a different way. And I was warned, and this is telepathic, you're getting instructions. It's very clear, not my mind making it up, because I wouldn't have chosen this particular exercise, to go out and just observe. And so what I saw in one instance during that time, it was about 3 or 4 months that this was very, very front and center in my life. 2009, okay? Lots of changes in 1997 for a lot of people, because when I've compared notes with some of my people that I've encountered in terms of interviewing or behind the scenes connecting to people to help me set up an interview, we've compared notes, and that 1997 was significant. The harmonic convergence, that was another big year. So these things are going where all of a sudden our experiences ramp up. And right now is one of these times when things are becoming, I think, more thin in our environment. And somebody I just read use that where the veil is thinning, and that's not a new reference. It's been there before, but it allows us to see things that we wouldn't otherwise see. And the other thing is our consciousness is expanding, so we're becoming more open, and in some way, shape, or form, we've evolved to be able to access some of these realms that before we weren't able to see as easily. So I don't have the science for this because our science is still on the fence about whether it exists. The guides have said string theory will get us there, but we're still a bit far away from that because there's a denial thing that makes it challenging to put this in context. However, people like Dean Radin, Bruce Lipton, other experiencers, explorers are trying to give us a context. Ingo Swann trying to give us language for this kind of stuff. So it's a work in progress. Anyway, back to that time shift. So I was told to do this little exercise, and when I did, I walked out the door immediately. I knew things were different. Everything in my reality on that day, the vehicles in the suburbs that I live in, there were no colors, no red, no yellow, green, blue, nothing. The only colors on the vehicles, which was my cue to know this was different, were in shades of black, gray, and silver, that black and white world. And I'm thinking, all right. And it's really a challenge to keep your mouth shut, because our goal a lot of times is to get someone else outside to validate what we are experiencing. And I had been given a direct suggestion, instruction, do not telegraph. And the explanation they gave me for that was it would stick me in that particular timeline, because then I would be stuck knowing that this is what I'm seeing, and if I'm trying to describe it differently, I might be given a hard time, and any kind of interaction of that would put too much emotion into it and stick me in that timeline. All right? I'm going to just allow that you're following along. However unfamiliar or familiar this sounds to you, this is my experience. And the only way I can help or assist is to put it out there and say these things happen. And that's what a lot of experiencers are doing right now, whether they've had a spiritual shift, a kundalini awakening, an alien abduction or a sighting, or a ghost encounter, a near-death experience. All of these things push our boundaries to give us an inside view of something else that's going on right alongside our real world. And to me, this other world is more real. It's just that we have to drop some of our baggage and fright, fear, that it's going to be harmful for us to discover and explore and try to make sense of these other reality planes that we are constantly either walking by or getting stuck in some way, shape, or form. The portal thing recently, I have experienced that as well, knowing that there is a portal and where it is, and I'll be darned. The first time I saw it, it was mind-blowing. I was with my dog watching these squirrels all go from one tree to the next and coming across the street to join them going down a wishing well. I'll call it a wishing well. But I'm seeing more squirrels than I can count appearing, coming down from a tree, a very large tree, and then others running across the road and all going to this one space and going down that wishing well. I'm walking my dog. She had absolutely no interaction with it. Now, this is a dog who would notice squirrels, especially in the great numbers. This is like a herd. And all I could do is, if I spread out my hand and put it in front of me to look within that space, I could count 15 to 20 squirrels, maybe 25. But that, and so knowing that I was seeing that many times 100, all of a sudden there were more squirrels than I had the ability to fathom. I couldn't count. There were too many. So any context I try to put on it just says this shouldn't be happening. And what I was witnessing didn't make sense. And so when you have that kind of experience going on and your mind is trying to put logic to it, you short circuit. So I have the gist of what happened. And the gist is it doesn't make sense. And yet I know the location and I know what I have seen happen there. And it doesn't mesh with everything else in that environment. And it's, to me, a sacred space. It's also a window into another dimension. That comes into play with, is it always open? Maybe, maybe not. Some people can see it, others can't. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that this is an anomaly, and it's reason for further exploration, inquiry, research, questioning. And that's why we're here, to question, to learn, to grow, to evolve. to explore. And taking the fear out of the equation, I finished that story with what I wanted to say in terms of they shifted my timeline. There were other things that happened along that event with that same kind of instruction to don't telegraph, experience it, giving me an idea that our reality could shift at the drop of a hat, and there's nothing we could do about it. But the one thing we could do is stay grounded, stay focused, and take notes. And remember, okay, this can happen. That's pretty much the only thing that I needed to remember. This can happen. Another one was telling me to go from point A to point B and take a certain route. And as I did, I was supposed to notice that the cars in front of me, if there was a white car, then it was okay to proceed. If there was a black car, that I would need to caution, wait, look both ways, whatever, something else was there was a block. So to pay attention to that. Now, in the same way of giving me that instruction, they're also giving me another way of looking at things. If a certain thing is present, it's okay and it's clear sailing. If another thing is present, then expect some delays or some something to give it a little bit more of the need that I need to either do something or just wait and let it pass. So it was giving me more information than just this linear symbol. And so as I'm doing this, I decide, and my husband's with me, which is great, I decide to take a shortcut because, well, it looks pretty easy, and so I take a shortcut. It isn't a shortcut. It goes into an apartment complex, and as there's one way in and one way out. So as I'm doing my little circle, we're passing a pond, and on this pond there are geese. The geese, as I look out, and this happens in slow-mo, as I walk, all of a sudden I am like expanded, and slow-mo as I'm driving by and looking out the window, I see the swans, geese. I constantly interpose or transpose or make them one or the other. They don't do this, ? All right? They're synchronized in the form of a question mark, swimming. It's beautiful. It's also impossible. My husband, fortunately, sees it. He says, see, I think they're wondering why you decided to take a shortcut too. No. Okay, well, in my defense, and I've told this story before, it's because I took that shortcut. I deviated from the course that I could see that I had been given a direction and I was being monitored to see how well I followed orders. Well, I tend to deviate occasionally. Squirrel. Isn't that amazing, that little symbol? Okay, so with that, it gave me an idea, though, that whatever is going on here is interactive, and we can follow it or not. Each and every day, every minute, every second, we have the opportunity to go with the flow or to deviate, to listen, to sit back and see what nature says or how it shows us what's happening. So much of our activities and our mind set is to force, to, brute force, move, shake, bully, punch through, make it happen. And there's also a thing that a label, if you don't make it happen, you're lazy, you're not trying, you can't do it, you're incompetent. And that's really, really not doing us any favors by putting those labels, because sometimes it is necessary to step back and say, and take notice. What is the temperature of the scene? What are the other actors in this play doing? How are you being validated or negated? What's going on in your environment and what's going on in your mind? Because we are also, as much as we are being activated, we are projecting. And that's that thing of bullying. I want this. I'm going to do that. I have to push. I have to make it happen. And sometimes it's standing back and letting it happen. And during that process, you may get a key piece of information that says, take the other path. This door is open, that door is closed. And it really isn't a matter of pushing or affirming. It's a matter of allowing. And when you do that, things flow. And then the universe is also receptive to your movement. Now, one of the things I do is Coffee Cup Divination. And it's something I just stumbled on because I thought the images were pretty. What happens is I let the coffee sit with the cream left over, okay? So I'll drink what I want and then let whatever it is sit. Maybe after 4 or 5 cups. I don't know. I drink the coffee first. Okay. All right. So, but then what happened the first time I went back and all of a sudden there was this beautiful design, gorgeous design on it. I thought, wow, that's even, I could paint that. I could draw it. I could do something, ink, whatever. And I thought, well, maybe it's something that has to do with me seeing a message. And it happened on a bathroom mirror where I had this image of a little ET, okay, these eyes. And then it morphed into a deer. And I'm just now putting those two together. Okay, I should have known. People of Earth is one of my favorite shows. And unfortunately, there were only 2 seasons, but it's well worth watching if you've had any experiences and you know the jargon, you know how this works. Okay, so this is something that... When I really finally connected how it worked, I realized that it is interactive. So as I let it sit, and there'll be some days when there's nothing there. It's just, a big blob, and there's no image, there's no impression. And so what's interesting right now is I'm telling this story. I have a squirrel sitting outside my window, watching me. I probably heard the squirrel story and thought, well, I hope there's more where that came from. Anyway, that interaction is really powerful because it gives me images and impressions of things that I can work with. And I'm going to be talking with Dr. Stephen Farmer. I have his books. I've been a fan of his and other people who work with animals and work with animal spirit, animal divination, that kind of stuff. So it's also the fact that this is coming into my scene, the realm, the frame of reference, the energy sphere, working with this, that these things are also important. And another way I work with my intuition. The image on the cup, at one point I realized it was a hawk. Extraordinary, incredibly beautiful, and to me, there was a lot of definition to it. So today, what reminded me of how I do this is I went into the kitchen and I had a cup sitting there, kind of percolating. And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Today, the energy was there. I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, here's some definition. And as I'm standing there, it has been sitting, not doing anything. As I'm standing there within 6 inches of it, it is changing. And it's very, very subtle changes. But I'm thinking, okay. So I grab my camera. The camera is rotten, okay? The phone does better with these kinds of images. I get better results with my phone. So I tried the camera first just to make sure. I'm not in sync with my camera. It's just and that's it. One of these things is when you do this kind of work and you've had your energy shift, sometimes you affect electronics differently, okay? And so sometimes they will shut down. The batteries will just futz out, and you're like, okay, well. And one time I was taking a picture of a star. I thought that was a really cool star. And I thought maybe it was a planet because it was red. And so I'm trying to figure out, is it a star or a planet? I'm going to take a picture. And so as I took a picture, my camera flashed at whatever it was that was red that immediately did a pulse and sent that pulse to my camera to make it flash. I'm like, whoa, okay. And I got a squiggle. I got a red squiggle. So nothing there to show anyone except the memory of being some way, shape, or form buzzed by that red thing, that red dot in the sky that I couldn't figure out whether it was a star or a planet. It's like, they're always talking to you. Something is getting our attention in a way that we will respond. And it triggers us to take more action, to become active, to become engaged, to be curious, to try and figure out what it is that's going on. Each and every one of us may have a different way of perceiving it. So I listen to lots of others to see what works for them. And then I find out there's something different that is working for me. And that's what's happening with this Coffee Cup Divination. And I'll pick it up here after the break. Wendy's Coffee House. Wendy's Coffee House. All right, getting back to the Coffee Cup Divination. So this morning as I'm doing this and getting ready and talking about other things, because I am multitasking, I realize this image in the cup. At first I think it's a woman. And that's what happened earlier in the week when I was in the dreams, in between in the dream. I'm awake and I'm asleep. And I round a corner and I look down this embankment. I'm on a road. It's a very steep road, like a mountainous kind of area. And I look down this embankment and I see a crash scene at the bottom of this ravine. I'm thinking, whoa, okay. But I see a woman walking toward the crash scene. And I think, okay, it's all right. There's somebody there. I don't need to stay here. And I'm with somebody else. For me, it's a guide in the dream. And okay, it's taken care of. The next day is a story about the guy who was basically saved, rescued, he and another person, rescued by his dog, who went to get help and had them follow her. They figured it out. Back to this site where they saw a break in the guardrail that wouldn't have been noticed. So she took them back. It was a female dog. And I thought, I'm seeing since it happened within 24 hours, I was seeing the spirit, the guardian spirit who was with this person. And so here we go back to how I see in these coffee cups. I see animals. At first I saw a woman, and that got my attention. But then as it morphed, I began to see different animals. And one is very much, oh my gosh, these are dogs. Different versions of dogs, but there's birds in there as well. There's a hawk, and the other one is owls. So as this began to morph and take shape, there were so many images that I had to really think, okay, what's going on with these images and what is the message? Well, the dog, one of them is the shape of my dog, Cassie, and who also is basically Gracie's, my previous dog, almost like a reincarnation. Because for one thing, we didn't intend this, but inadvertently we adopted a similar dog with a similar, born at the same time of year, and her mannerisms, the things are so unique. Gracie had white toes, and I said, I will always remember your white toes. When I saw this little puppy, she had a white toe. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I get her, and she does a lot of the things that the other dog did. So that's another story. But so with this imprint in the coffee cup, the mug, the divination, is the dog, and that's a spirit animal, spirit guide that I work with. I have seen dogs around other people, and they have certain messages that they bring with them. So I work with that. It's a shorthand, and it's a way of attaching meaning to something relevant that when it appears, I can say, okay, I need to pay attention to this. It isn't the same every time. It's just that, okay, this is happening, so what is this about? All right, and the other one was with the owl. I've seen owls forever, and then owls in the yard. We have owls here, and I mean, just beautiful. I've been able to take some wonderful, wonderful pictures. One just came and ate out of the drank water out of the bird bath, and wasn't bothered by me taking pictures. I asked permission, so that thing of if you will allow, I would like to take your picture. And sometimes they say okay, and other times they say not today, not today, because I have to go run and get the camera. And in that instance, the camera works. Okay, so, but the other one the other image that comes through, I kept having visions. And this is when you meditate. You meditate and you get images, impressions, visions. And so I was seeing this gorilla face and this beautiful, very, very, very distinctive gorilla face. I'm thinking, what the heck? Why am I seeing gorillas? And then in this coffee mug, there is in one part that I can see that for me looks obvious is the face of a gorilla. And so I'm thinking, okay, so this image is playing in here as well. So all of these images, all of the impressions are animal energy, but it's also being influenced by me standing next to it. And if you've done any kind of research on how our energy affects others and affects plants, affects things in our surrounding, well, yeah, shut your computer down. Okay, if you had any kind of experience with that, then you understand that our thoughts and our beliefs and our ideas are creating our reality. So it's very difficult to separate what we believe and how we act and our impact from the environment around us. And so when you really start paying attention and notice when someone's house, certain things happen, or they're accident prone, things are deteriorating, running down, then you realize, okay, some house cleaning has to happen. And the thing about that is, it's the internal house cleaning that happens first. It isn't the external. The external helps, but the internal starts first. So whatever we're doing, in every single way, our reality reflects back to us. If we need to do some house cleaning, if we need to do some fixing up, some releasing, some letting go, and those kinds of things are being reflected back to us. So here in this coffee cup that I was working with was this energy being reflected to me. I am working with my dog, Cassie, and she is a very connected part of me. I'm also learning from her, as I have from my other pets. But some of us are more in tune with each other and work as leaders and as instructors. And I had another German Shepherd his name was Max. And with this, it was interesting. He came to me. They needed someone to take care of this dog, and in the interim, because he had run away from all of his owners. Yeah. Okay. They treated him like a dog. He wasn't a dog, and that was his problem. He was a companion, and he was for me, he was extraordinary and a very, very big teacher. But within 7 days, he ran off. And I got from my guides it was a mistake. He ran after a squirrel and went through the fence, and then he couldn't get back in. So I'm ready to go look for him at the pound because it's the kill shelter, and 7 days is it if he's been there that long. I'm thinking, okay, please, 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 please. My nightlight at that point, this is one of the first nightlights I had that was interactive. It hadn't been coming on. It was on its last leg, this particular shell light. It was already 20 or 30 years old at that time. And so anyway, it comes on that morning. I'm like, okay, that's a sign. It's a sign. And he came walking down the sidewalk, and my husband says, Max is back. And he comes up the stairs with his tail between his legs, looking very, very sheepish. If you can imagine, you know how they look. Very sheepish. And what I had made, though, was a contract that I needed to walk him twice a day. That would be our contract, that I would walk him twice a day because I wanted him to stay. And I wanted him to know that he was wanted. And that was it. And from then on, he was a companion, a guardian, and a safety for me. He did some things that were very, very helpful and crucial at a time when things were really, really dark. So, and I don't go into that because I don't need to give it any more leverage. I don't need to give it any more. I don't need to amplify it. It was necessary for me to go through that time. And so those kinds of things, I think, are ways for us to integrate new awareness, because when you see this happen in front of you and you see these images or these symbols, then you know that, okay, this is relevant. But it takes effort to do the work, to identify what is important and how am I working with this? How does this fit in my environment, in my life? And the cool thing with these things is that they're so outside the norm, like billboards, like, going out and being told that I was going to experience a shift. And there it is. It was an altered state of seeing cars, black, silver, gray, white, no colors. And in in the suburbs of a big city, that doesn't happen when I'm traveling from one part of the city to the other, and that's all there is. So that was a shock. And then having the instruction to go from point A to point B, and me deviating from the instruction and taking my non-shortcut, it looked like it was a good idea. I mean, it looked like it was a good way to go. No. And then the swans, geese. There's a reason I say swans, and that's mine, okay? But geese, swimming, synchronized swimming in the form of a question mark. Questioning my decision, my choice, and questioning my reality. Do you get it? Wow. Okay. So that was really interesting. All right. And then the squirrels. Okay, there's one more little blip that goes along with this. And this blip is walking from point A to point B in my house, doing my regular, autopilot routine. I'm going from the kitchen to the office, and that's it. As I do that, I happen to look to the left and see the cat looking at me. At this point, I had Chloe, who was a calico, and I couldn't take enough pictures of her. She's beautiful. Her colors were fantastic, and she was a delight. Just from the time that she blew into my life, looked like a little ballerina tumbling across the room between two dogs' legs and over. She was just a little, I don't know, a fairy, and she was a ballerina. So this energy that she had, I was in love with her. She was just so beautiful and so joyful. So as I'm looking, I see her and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to take her pictures. She's spectacular. She's got her green collar on with her with her pink heart on the collar, and she just, it's picture perfect. So I'm thinking the other room, I'm going to go get my camera, and then I think, what? Okay, Chloe never wore collars. If I put a collar on her, she would Houdini herself out of it within seconds. Usually it was a matter of disappearing into the basement, coming back out with nothing on. Okay. So that's what hits me. She doesn't wear a collar. So I go back into the room, and even the position that she would have been in for me to see her that way is impossible. She was sitting in that same chair. But for me, I thought she was sitting on the back of the chair. The back of the chair is only like 2 inches wide. Chloe's, no, that wouldn't work. Plus the height she was at was about 4 feet. The eyes. And I realized that was a screen memory. Whatever I had seen gave me that impression. And it may be that it wasn't intentionally a screen memory, but it's because of the energy in that space strongly was Chloe's, and I couldn't make sense of what I was looking at. All right. So whether it was fear, whether it was the unfamiliarity, my mind just blocked it, I don't know. I do know that what I saw was impossible. Chloe doesn't wear collars. And the wonderful thing about that is it was a lime green collar with a pink heart. And she was facing me, directly facing me. So all I can think of as a memory is a Cheshire cat. Whatever energy that was having a very, very good laugh. Because my frame of reference was completely shut down. There's no way I could put that one into anything that made sense. And no, I haven't had a regression. For me, this works as it is because it was another reminder that these things are happening around us all the time. And when we are able to expand our awareness and evolve to being more conscious instead of the autopilot lockstep mode that we a lot of times fall into, then we'll see more of this. And that's what some of this thing with COVID has done. It has forced people to isolate. And for some people, that's absolutely, that's been like a mental health crisis because isolation is frightening. And for me, though, it's been liberating because it allows me to focus more on these things and to see these things. and to experience it in a way that then I can give it a little more texture and understand what the point of it might be. And that's, to each his own. But that part of it for me has given me the freedom to explore and to read and research about more of these types of experiences, and to understand that there are so many more connections that we are finally beginning to acknowledge. And it isn't that this stuff is all brand new, it's that more people are experiencing the freedom to talk about it. There was a story recently I read outside online about a dowser, and man, he's like one of the best in the Americas. There are dowsers all over the planet, but he is known for being able to be successful. And so in the article, the journalist actually at the very end is given a chance with another dowser to feel the rods and see what happens, trying to put himself in that state. And he does feel this definite pull. And so that was a nice thing for the journalist to be able to connect those dots. But he'd also had prior experience, and this portal thing comes back into play, that he knew as a kid there was a portal in a certain area. He had seen the shimmer. He had seen it. He knew, and the dowser was able to affirm it for him, confirm it. But with this kind of stuff, knowing that these things are part of these are some of our abilities. And the thing about this dowser was he had a grandfather who took the kids out and said, here are the sticks, now go for it. Find where the water is. It's out here, and it runs this particular way, and go find it. And so he was the one who had very, very solid results. And his grandfather told him, you work with this because you're going to be very good at it. You'll be able to do something with it. All right. So he had a mentor, somebody who was in his family who said, yes, validated, instead of the surroundings that people have who say, well, that's just crazy. I don't know what you're doing, but you're scaring me. And as soon as somebody does that to you, the clue there is to walk away. The clue there is to go a different direction, because your stuff to be scary to somebody else says they're not ready to handle it. It doesn't mean you should shut it down and make it go away. It just says that it's a good thing for you to say, all right, I can discover this on my own. Because when people try to shut you down and say, you're frightening me, or put a label on it and give it some other frightening name, that's their fear, not yours. They are in a space that does not allow them to experiment, to explore, to accept that we are more than just a physical body, that this energy around us, running through us, in us, from us, and to everything in our space is a huge, huge and powerful source, all right? And it can motivate you or it can shut you down. My goal, personally, is to find out more about how this works. And when I told somebody that I'd had an experience and said, when the ETs are present, because the atmosphere shifts, it's like all of a sudden your sense of smell is enhanced. All of a sudden you can smell things that you had no awareness of before. Your intuition is enhanced. The air all of a sudden is crisp, like being at the top of a mountain for me. Now that's because I'm in a space that I don't always have that sense, but it felt to me like I was at a higher elevation and everything was crisp and clean and clear. So as an experiencer, having had all of these kinds of experiences, I'm not kicking tires. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody else. I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm trying to say we each have certain viewpoints, windows, abilities, insight. The next time somebody tells you they've had an experience, give them the benefit of a doubt and ask them, what happened? How did that feel? How did it change you? That's where we grow, and that's how we evolve, because these stories have been happening for eons. And for some communities, it was so frightening, they shut it down. But for us to go forward, That's where we have to allow the evolution to go full circle, full tilt, because that's how we learn to self-heal, to regenerate, to rebirth, grow, and become that higher, that advanced, that wise human. That's where our species is going, if we can get past the fear. Thank you for listening. I have blog posts. I'll put a picture of that Coffee Cup Divination on the blog. Talking to Nightlights is one blog, and Wendy's Coffee House is the other. And the show in the description here on Audio Boom, I'll put links here as well. So I've got guests coming up, and we'll be talking about, well, for one, the shamanic value of animals and the insight that comes with that, just like I have pegged in my Coffee Cup Divination. And then the others, communicating with people who are deceased, and life goes on. So those are just a couple of the ones I've got coming up. Thanks for listening. Stay curious.